Let's now talk about 0 to a positive number. First, let's talk about 0 to a positive integer. 0 to the first is equal to 0. The reason for this is that the definition of exponents is repeating multiplication. So we'll have 1, 0. So that's just 0. 0 squared is equal to 0 times 0. We have two zeros being multiplied together, and then that's 0. 0 cubed is equal to 0 times 0 times 0. 3 zeros being multiplied together, and that is 0. 0 to the fourth is equal to 0 times 0 times 0 times 0. 4 zeros being multiplied together, and that is 0. And we could do this for any positive integer, and so on. So 0 to any positive integer is equal to 0. I would like to quickly explain why I have the exponents of positive non-integers subheading when I have 2 and 3 as being powers and both of those are integers. The reasons for that is that they're creating an upper and lower bound for the positive non-integers powers we're talking about, and also they give an example about repeating multiplication, which we can then apply to non-integers as well. So we already know that 0 squared is 0 times 0. We have two zeros being multiplied together, and that is 0. We already know that 0 cubed is 0 times 0 times 0. We have 3 zeros being multiplied together, and that is 0. But what about 0 to the 2 1/2? We'll be needing 2 1/2 zeros being multiplied together. And so that would be 0 times 0 times 0 to the 1/2. Now let's clean up things a little bit and delete the middle steps for 0 squared and 0 cubed. Now there's a property about exponents that includes the idea that anything to the 1/2 is equal to the square root of that anything. If I explain later in a much later set of videos about why that's the case, I plan to have that link description of this video. But anyway, that means that 0 to the 1/2 is equal to the square root of 0. I plan to later in this set of videos to explain that the square root of 0 is equal to 0. So let's just substitute that in. And so we have 0 times 0 times 0, and that is equal to 0. So 0 to the 2 1/2 is equal to 0. Likewise, 0 to the 2 2/3 is equal to 2 2/3 zeros being multiplied together. So that would be 0 times 0 times 0 to the 2/3. Now there's a property of exponents that includes the idea that any number to the 2/3 is equal to that any number squared and then cube rooted. So that means that 0 to the 2/3 is equal to 0 squared and then cube rooted. Now we already know that 0 squared is equal to 0, and I plan later in the set of videos to explain that 0 cube rooted is equal to 0. So now we have 0 times 0 times 0, that is 0. So 0 to the 2 2/3 is equal to 0. Likewise, 0 to the 2 7/10 is equal to 2 7/10 zeros being multiplied together. So that would be 0 times 0 times 0 to the 7/10. Now there's a property about exponents that includes the idea that any number to the 7/10 is equal to the 10th root of that any number to the 7th power. So that means that 0 to the 7/10 is equal to the 10th root of 0 to the 7th power. And 0 to the 7th power is 0. And the 10th root of 0 is equal to 0. So we have 0 times 0 times 0. That is 0. So 0 to the 2 7/10 is equal to 0. Similarly, 0 to the 2 71,828 over 100,000 is equal to 2 71,828 over 100,000 zeros being multiplied together. And so that would be 0 times 0 times 0 to the 71,828 over 100,000. And likewise, that would be the 100,000 root of 0 to the 71,828. and you can simplify that to 100,000 root of 0, and that would be 0. So we have 0 times 0 times 0, and that is 0. So 0 to the 2 is 71,828 over 100,000 is equal to 0. Now you may see this e and you may wonder, what is it? Well, it's an irrational number, which means it is a number that cannot be written as a fraction, and it has the value of approximately 2.7188281828459045, and then so on. Now we could continue having equations that get closer and closer to 0 to the e. For the last one, we had 0 to the 2 and 71,828 over 100,000. If we continue having powers that get closer and closer to e, and we will find out that the answers continue to be 0, 0, 0, 0. So it makes sense that 0 to the e is equal to 0. So we know that 0 to a positive integer is 0. For example, 0 squared is 0. Because as 0 times 0, that's repeating multiplication, and the answer would be 0. Other positive integers will follow the same pattern, and so 0 to any positive integer is 0. 0 to any positive rational non-integer is 0. For example, 0 to 2 1/2 is equal to 0. That was 0 times 0 times 0 to the 1/2. And that was simplified to 0 times 0 times 0, which has the same format as the expansion of some 0 to the positive integer, and so we would know that is 0. As the powers of the positive rational non-integers get closer and closer and closer to the power of the positive irrational number, the answer continues to be 0, 0, 0. And so 0 to a positive irrational number is 0. As all cases for positive exponents are covered, we can know that 0 to any positive number is 0. Thank you for watching this video. Here's a link to the playlist about some properties of 0 and which this video is a part of. Feel free to click on this link.